y'all. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. And we're going to be diving into embodying your signature brand. So, this is really going to how we're placing the ideas that were brought up during the summit and allowing them to inform what we are doing in our businesses. I also like to say our lives because we're creating both, right? Blessed morning. I don't want to mess up your name. You want to tell me how to say your name before I mess it up? Because I like to try.
Hi,
Hi,
Maria.
Anna. Beautiful. Thank you for telling me. Yes, beautiful name. Yeah, and how we're fitting those ideas from the summit into our work and our lives and what it means, essentially. What does embodiment mean? What does a signature brand mean? What do I mean by signature? I'm sure other people have different definitions than I do. So that'll be part of it too. So this is just give us an outline of what we're looking at today. The points that we're going to be paying attention to is what it takes to really understand your voice and to know the value and mind the gold. Then we're going to be talking about how we're making space for desire, how to stake your claim, and how to choose the next steps with confidence. Playing your game is what this is all about, and a little bit of what that looks like is also what we're talking about today. And then it's all about taking the stage, making the leap, showing up. We talked a little bit about that yesterday after the speakers, but referring to Thursday when Daryl was telling us about trusting ourselves and what that looks like is what we're learning from Daryl. And then afterward, y'all weren't around, but he said something really profound. Abraham Hicks has a saying of tapped in, tuned in, turned on. And I remember when I first heard it, and he was saying when he first heard it, we thought that was pretty much the same thing. Tapped in, tuned in sounds about the same, turned on sounds about the same. And so it was this thing of what, where was it going from there? And that was the aha that Daryl got after speaking to you guys. And it translated into my work for me. So tapped in was getting grounded in your purpose. And when I say purpose, I mean your being, who you are and your energetic being. And so that's something that we do in my Vocal Creatrix program, and it's something that we'll be using in the Vocal Alchemy program. And it really is about recognizing your energetic signature. So that being has an energy and recognizing it. And most of us in the spiritual world, if you've been in any energy work and you recognize that as love and happiness and joy, like true joy and not just happiness dependent upon circumstances, right? And that is part of that energy signature, but recognizing that specific vibration that reminds you why you're here and what's important to you, and then initiates you or triggers you into the action that you're meant to be doing in the world in this present time at this moment. And so that's the work that we do also. So we were talking about that with quite a few people. Myra Jackson was really the initiation of that conversation because we were talking about how we're an aspect of nature. And that is one of our signatures, right? Being in contact with nature, being in conversation with nature, as we were talking about with Asha. And why that is because it's part of our energy signature. When we are acknowledging and focusing on our connection to nature and the planet, then we have a more present vibration. And so that is one of the most important elements of the work. And then what we want to do is get aligned to it, which is something that when you feel it, you are aligned to it, but sometimes we don't know. And so Jen was talking a little bit about how You can do a test, an energetic test, and see if you're closer to just your right brain or left brain, and then bringing yourself back into alignment with your breath, right? So that is a way of doing it. But what I find with most methods is that you have to stop. You have to stop what you're doing. You have to get centered. You have to find space in your head. You have to separate yourself from action in order for you to get rebalanced. And so, what I want us to do is be able to sense ourselves and our vibration in motion when we're in the act of doing something. And so, for that to be possible, that's why we use voice. And so, Serena was talking about this and how the movement of voice and having that vocal vibration. Maria was also talking about this, how that vocal vibration really is working on your energetic field, it's working on your aura, your auric field, if you think of it that way. It's working on your physical body because vibration is the next closest thing to materialization, right? And we all know that all seen things have energy. And so we are just recognizing them as solid because we can feel them, right? But they have their own vibration going on as well. And so it is actually one of those things that can move through physicality and reform it through vibration as well. So that is something that a lot of tools don't allow you to do because, again, you have to separate yourself out and then do it. But voicing, you're usually either already in the act of voicing, and in other words, you are in a conversation with somebody, or you need to be in conversation with somebody, or you can do it because it comes with you, right? You don't have to go find your crystal. You don't have to go find your crystal bowl. You don't have to go find a tool outside of yourself in order for you to access your voice, right? And so it really is, Maria was talking about it as a gift that was just given to us when we were born, and that is the truth. It's given to you for the purpose of using it to restore yourself. And that is always the first step, is to allow yourself to feel good. So that's a little bit what Asha was talking about again, right? If we are remembering that we can and we're allowed and that we actually want it, because again, when we're talking, who was it? Who was talking about this one where essentially that I was talking about, if you can't feel good in the process, then you're not going to feel good in the result, essentially. Is the baseline. And the whole point is to feel good in the process. That experience is what we came for. We talked about that with at least 5 of the speakers, right? It came up in a few of those conversations. We came for the experience of the process. So it's about enjoying the process. That way you're not depending on other people to give you that confidence that it was worth your time, your effort, your energy, right? If you enjoy it while you're doing it, then nobody can take that from you. And that's one of the biggest things we learned from Rosha yesterday. So it's important that we are valuing that aspect of ourselves, that we get to use our voices because they were given to us to use as a tool to heal and transform. And that starts with ourselves, right? That starts with us. So if we're always waiting on somebody else to affirm our voice or tell us that our voices, our ideas are worthy, then we often get stuck, right? That's where we get stuck in comparison. We get stuck in our visioning because we are trying to make it perfect, right? So if we're waiting for the perfect vision and then perfect creation of that vision, then we'll be waiting forever because there's no such thing, right? And so that's one of the things that we really want to start owning for ourselves. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I use the voice, because I think people go straight to singing, and it can be that, as we spoke with Maria about, but honestly, this is just about the voice making sound. And so I don't really think about it as singing, but Some people would if they heard me and my application of it, but that's just because that's my experience, right? And I have that background. But for some people, it's just noises, this is sounds, and we are in the process of getting aligned to our bodies and what it feels like to make, or how to feel good about making sound, and recognizing again when we're making sound that's connected to our signature vibration. So let me just show you the little elements here. With the Get Vocal methods, the method I created, there's 4 steps of the Get Vocal method, but the purpose of the Get Vocal method is these 3 things. What it's allowing you to do is tap into the breath in a way that we are in a creation mode. And so not just breath by itself, that's unsensible, but breath with vibration, which makes it vocal. And so when we cross that threshold, we are experiencing our active creation, right? And that's why it doesn't really matter what the sound is that comes out. There's no right sound to come out. It's just whatever comes out in connection to whatever your focus is. And in that focus, again, our goal is to refocus on our signature vibration, our personal aspects, to bring ourselves back into resonance, to bring ourselves back into joy. And how are we recognizing that is always the question I think that comes up. How do we know when we're not in alignment? The question I asked Renata. And so you've probably heard like all of those things that she said, that she knows that she gets cranky, or that there's like all of these externals, right? So essentially what we're hearing is that you don't know until something else happens outside of you. And so what I'm trying to do is to help us to recognize that before it gets into a production, into our relationships, into our what we're trying to create. I want you to know even before you open your mouth if you're aligned to what you're about to say. And that comes through understanding and being able to recognize your signature vibration, right? And it happens the same way in your business. If you have a sense, again, of your signature vibration, when you're in the action of it, you will know if you're feeling out of alignment, if you're feeling out of joy, you'll recognize the vibration in your body. You won't, again, have to wait until you create the thing. And then it's like, oh my gosh, that's nothing like I wanted it. And it doesn't represent me really and whole and fully. I know that sometimes how I felt of things in the past. I wish it represented me more clearly. And when those things happen, it's because when we're in the process of it, we're hearing those other voices. We're hearing the comparison voices. We're hearing, the voices of the people who tell us like, well, you have to do this to get that. And then we're creating things based on those voices instead of, again, what is aligned to our energy signature. So again, being able to recognize it and then act in relationship with that energy of alignment is going to shift how we create our businesses. Our structures start looking different. How you set up your time and schedule looks different when you're in your own resonance. And truthfully, like one of my biggest things is time freedom. You talked about this a couple of times this week. And how many people, tell you to set up your schedule with how much money you want to make. Number one, most of my empaths, they don't know. It's the truth, because money is not like real so much in the empathic brain. It just isn't. It's like this thing that they want us to have so I can get the stuff I want. So it gets really ethereal. And so we don't have a specific number, and we can work on that too. But essentially, we need something more solid. We need something more solid to us. So again, what does that look like for most of my people? Success looks like time freedom, looks like freedom to continue to explore their spirituality. It looks like having genuine, authentic relationships in which they feel seen and are able to support others in being seen. And it looks like that that work and that effort having an impact on the world that will allow the world to move into more harmony and love. And so those are feel much more real to most of my clients than to say, I'm going to make $10,000 this month. And so then I have to have 10 or, I don't know, 100 customers. I don't know, math, right? I need papers for that. But and therefore I need to work 40 hours a week in order to work with those customers. And then now your time is like totally taken up and you don't want to do any of it because you're, at least if you are me, if you're one of your highest priorities is freedom, then like a full schedule is not appealing to you. And if the outcome is about money, then there's no motivation because it's not real. Right. And so we have to know our own motivators. We have to, and then make that the goal, what our success version looks like. So that's that version of playing our game. And so, yes. And so that comes back to grounding into your signature energy, which comes from your purpose. And a lot of people use different ways to clarify their purpose. Like, I love astrology, but I always say that it's your stories in your life that are going to inform you about your own energy, right? So even if I say I'm a Cancer sun and moon, Scorpio rising, I know I'm not like the Cancer sun and moon that wants 5 children in their family. I'm not that Cancer sun and moon, right? I'm not a Scorpio rising that feels like I have to be mean to protect myself, right? My now Scorpio rising, my version, and I still have a shadow version, but it just doesn't look like that. My shadow version looks like turning inward and pretending like the world doesn't exist, right? And then cuts me off from the rest of the world. So that looks like a lot different than somebody else's version of Scorpio rising. And that I know from my own personal experience and stories. So I'm not letting astrology tell me who I am. I'm referring the aspects of that energy to the life that I already know I'm living, right? And so that's what's important about knowing your signature energy, because that story is going to remind you of the feeling that happens, right? So that story I just said, there's a feeling I have when I'm not trusting the outside world and I turn inward and just pretend like it's not happening. And it's like this, and I can feel that in my body, this closing down, this coldness, there's a feeling to that, right? And what we want to do is, again, recognize when we're open to our possibilities and aligned to our energy and the joy that we can create. And then the opposite, again, we'll know right away. And then it's up to us to decide if we want to shift, right? And so sometimes you don't, sometimes we're in a learning experience, sometimes we're in a practice experience, and those things look different as well. So that is important to know. So that's what we do in the Get Vocal method. What I find is that a lot of people are doing a lot of the spiritual work and shadow work, and there's a lot of shifting in the body, and they don't have an outlet. What I call it is integration. So the important part, so we're getting to the embodiment piece now, right? The important part of embodiment is that it allows you to get reoriented and bring with your body and the wholeness of your alignment, spiritual alignment, your soul alignment, that you are together on that, right? So if your spirit has grown and evolved with new understanding because of the shadow work you've done, but you still have the same, and some people call it story. So that's why writing can be one of those embodiment pieces. So if you rewrite your story, that can be one way of embodying, right? Some people run it off. I'm tired of this way of feeling. They don't even know why they're doing it a lot of times, but like the movers are going to just go outside and run for 2 miles until like they can think again. And so that's another way of processing it. If you're moving your blood in your body for really about at least 20 minutes, is what people say, is that if you're moving the blood in your body and you have that larger movement, then it can shift that field for you too. Your energy will get processed and then the field will shift, right? There's other ways, but they're all like different, like creative ways and that kind of thing. I again find voicing to be the fastest version. I was talking about this with Maria because it does both, right? So we're moving the energy and we're shifting the breath, right? Which is basically the energy, the auric field, and the voicing is shifting the body. That's what I was trying to say. So we're shifting the breath and the body through voicing, and it really does. It takes minutes. Like it doesn't. You don't have to. I think it was about 15 minutes the other day, and I was bringing up some ancestral runes, and it was a lot of stuff and just world dynamics. It wasn't just me, it was the entire feminine and the belief of our value and having the kind of connection that we want with the masculine in the world. Like it was a big thing that was moving through me. And that took 15 minutes, right? So like when you're talking about the current times, and so I want to reference that a little bit. Oh, I didn't include that one. I didn't want to get that deep, I think. So I had a slide, but I didn't want to depress people. But essentially, in the current times, like everything's moving so quickly. What I'm finding is that the people that are able to hold a high vibration there's more being required of them. And we have been trained, and it has worked up until now to just set boundaries and do our self-care, and like those things were enough. And I'm finding it's not so much lately. And what I perceive is happening is that our energy is being called on not just for us, but for our communities and our greater areas, because there's so much confusion, right? And there's just not enough boundaries in the world that is going to save you from that, because the reality is that we're needed. And especially, I think, if we're not in the active motion of doing the work that we're here to do in the world, then our energy is going to be called on, because that's what we're here for. And I think that's also what creates a lot of the overwhelm and anxiety for my empaths as well, because they don't know where that pull is coming from. They don't know how to deal with others. And so they are thinking if they just stay more alone, again, which has worked in the past, if you just stick to your family, I'll just stick to like my corner of the world, that it will be okay. It's not, I think you need more. You need a better grounding. You need a more sense of self so that you can amplify your signature vibration, is where we're building our brand from, our signature vibration, right? And then when you amplify the vibration, then you don't have to, that transmutation that's coming from the community is not feeding into your energy, right? And this is what I call changing the room. And I refer to a room, but it can be the community. Instead of the community and their energy pull impacting you negatively, that you're positively impacting the community, because the clarity of your own energy brings a resonance that amplifies, and that you don't have to kind of protect your space anymore, because you've changed the space to retrain to you and your vibration, right? And so that is part of it. Like it's a retraining. And that is possible because of physics, right? Anything that's resonating in the same field is going to train to the highest vibration, right? But if we're not consistent and aligned, and that vibration isn't resonant, then it doesn't have the strength to train, right? And so that's what we are talking about here. So when you're embodying your energy signature, then that recognition, that awareness brings that love and resonance to your signature and it amplifies. And that's kind of the technical, if you want to call it that, the technical explanation of why it works. Right. So when you're embodying your brand, this is about how you're facing the world. So I never finished, I don't think, what I was talking about with tapping in, tuning in. Right. So tapping in is grounding, is connecting to your energy. Right. Tuning in is aligning, right, is bringing that energy back into alignment through embodiment. So that voicing is how I think of it, or there's other tools. So if you write, or again, they're running, if you're, but when you're done, whatever it is that you feel aligned, right? That's tuning in. And then turning on is sharing your message. And not just the act of sharing a message, but deciding to be in the action of sharing your message. Right. And again, this doesn't have to look like a billboard on the highway. It can look like starting a blog and sharing a meme. Like it could be very easy, right? Or just doing that list that Meredith was talking about, start making that list, planning backwards on what it's going to look like ultimately, right? When you finish that book, or if you finish a course that you want to share with the world, right? And yeah, so that last step of actually deciding that you are going to be in cooperation with the planet, with the world, and achieving the vision that you have, right? So a lot of that comes with that trusting piece as well. And it's a lot easier to trust yourself if you recognize when you're in alignment, because you're not going to doubt your higher self, right? Especially if you can feel it. I feel like a lot of us have been trained in our spirituality to just have faith and just believe it's happening and just hope that we're having an experience of love. And that was one of my first confrontations with Christianity. I was like, why, if I know something to be true, it's like kind of what Daryl was saying in his presentation, right? Then I don't have to think about it. I don't have to try to have faith. And how do I know? I know things that have informed my body, right? And I don't know, Daryl, it might work differently because he's weird. But for me, how I know is because I recognize my signature vibration. So I know if I'm in the way of my gifts when I'm speaking. Luckily for me, like my voice just turns off when I'm not in the way of it. That's why I have to stop speaking sometimes if I'm focused on something else. And this is how I teach other people but how do you know? You'll know when you recognize that energy that moves through you. And yes, so that is really the work that we're doing here. Let's talk a little bit about the cycles, because that's something else that comes up. And we were talking about the cycles and the seasons with our astrology folks, especially where we understand our science of Western astrology through those cycles. So that is one of the key points in understanding where you are in your process, right? I know where I am in a cycle often because of the same things. I know how it feels when I'm about to start, right? I recognize the energy in my body. And that way now, it used to be I used to get super like performance anxiety, get super nervous before something. You know, how I was talking about, I got nervous the day before, because that's the old word. The old word used to be nervous. Now I think of it as energy, right? And so that to me is my initiation energy. I know something's going to be powerful when I get that energy. And the stronger that energy is, the bigger and the impact I know whatever I'm about to start is going to be. right? And so I am grateful for that now, right? I'm like, oh, great. Like the only thing that I have to remember to do is ground, right? So that that energy gets to fully process and do the work it's here for, instead of me getting uncomfortable with the amount of energy coming through me and feeling like I have to shut down, right? And so that's my initiation energy. So that's the equivalent of spring, right? And our we were talking menstrual cycle, so that's the equivalent of follicular. And so we talk about these cycles so that we can start to recognize where we are in that cycle, because how we want to interact with our energy is a little different. And initiation, we know that energy is a big movement of energy because that's the impact of initiation. You can think fire as a fire element. When we're in that energy, that things want to move and they like to move a little quickly because that energy is for the start. If you get ready to jump, right, then depending on how high you want to jump, the more you have to get ready, right? So you have to squat and like get really where those muscles are going to have to do the most, right? To get the highest jump possible, right? And so it's that's that energy. It's like whatever you need to do to get started is a more energy than usually than you need to continue. Unless you're pushing. So this is something again we talk about more in the course. So like the essentially if you get into a push energy, then you have to continue to push, right? So the next stage would be summer, and the next stage should be flowing. So we're talking about summer with Jennifer Butler, our essence, right? And what were the aspects of summer? Grace, process, but gentleness, like being gentle with yourself. So those are essentially the high vibration sides of summer, because you can also, summer can be heat, it can be pressure, it can be not feeling like you can continue, right? And that's what I call pushing. If you've started with if you've initiated with a push energy, then that energy is what you're going to need to continue that process. So I've a lot of this is a translation of, again, my experience with voice. And again, how I teach others voice. So if I'm literally teaching you how to sing, this is a conversation that comes up, right? Because if you're working super hard to start the sound, then you're going to have to work that hard the whole time. And it's not just going to be that hard, it's going to be like multiple times hard. As the further you go, the longer you hold the sound, right? And so when we start something, it's a really great time to make it fun. It's a really great time to make it fun, because more simple, fun. I forget which speaker we spoke about this with. I think it may be Meredith. Simple, fun, and what's the other word? I lost it. But essentially, yeah, you want it to be simple, fun, and the thing that's coming to me right now is that you want it to be in your energy. In other words, if you're starting something based on, again, what somebody else told you would work, then we're going again have to feel like you have to be like that person in order to continue the thing. Right. So even if you find a great idea from somebody, bring it back, get centered, ground, right? And then say, now, how do I want to do this? What does it look like in my energy? Right. And that's why we can help each other so much, because we can give each other's inspiration ideas. We actually call other people into our field so that we can get those inspirations and ideas. So bravo you. So yeah, so you want to congratulate on both sides of that. And you want to also, instead of thinking about perfection, thinking about how does this feel for me? Right? How do I see this successfully for me? right? So that's a little bit of playing your game. That's a little bit of what that looks like. So, yeah, so those are the essential pieces. And your branding is about how your voice impacts the world. And we all have unique qualities to our voice. I also use astrology energy reading to translate and clarify the voice, how the voice wants to show up, right? And so when we're looking at that, what we're looking at is what does our expression feel like? And when people are receiving that expression, you know, how we do we want them to feel? What is success for us? Like, so some people want their audience to feel excited and happy, but they basically just want everybody to have a good time. They want that to be the result because they know if people are happy and excited, that they will more willingly live into their possibilities, right? And then some people want an intimate connection. They want to feel trustworthy, essentially. So intimacy requires vulnerability. So a lot of people who like intimate environments will share their very personal stories and they will, and so that you feel free to share yours. And then they have a beautiful version of intimacy within the group, and that people feel that they can be fully open and be fully themselves, right? There's so many different ways, but the voice shows up in different ways. Some people it's humor, and you would think humor is entertainment, but it's not. Humor is actually dealing with big truths with lightness, right? And that's mine. Mine is humor because I can, even though I'm talking about something really big, I can laugh because I can see the other side of it. And I know that the potential and of the outcome when we are willing to be with the full experience. And so that actually excites me. So sometimes I might feel it might seem like I'm not taking something seriously, but it's actually like because of how serious I take it, and I know the possibility of transformation when we are in something that deep. It it just brings me back to lightness, right? So it depends on how our voice likes to show up, right? But then how that voice likes to show up is how people can fully see us. And when we are speaking in that voice and then we're recognizing that voice, we feel seen. So if you're trying to show up as somebody else's voice, that's when you don't feel seen. And Jen was talking about this too. Jen Yang was talking about this too, where if you're, that's what happens, that we show up the way we think will make people happy and in the best version of perfection that we can create, right? And then we are disappointed when people don't respond and or um, they don't get you, right? They read you wrong. Well, and that happens because we're facing other people's energy with a face that's not our own, right? Because we're buying into what society told us is the proper face, and we're buying into all the things. And then so we show up like that. And then when it doesn't work, we're like, what happened? But that's what happened. And so you can't be seen for yourself if you don't show up as yourself, right? The confusion comes in the discrepancy of alignment, right? And so that's something else that we talk about. So does anybody have any questions for me? That's essentially the embodiment piece, because those are the things, you're fully embodied when you can fully show up as the newness that is that learning and integration of self. And then the brand, like Sonia was saying, is you are your business, you are your brand. So that's the whole theme of this whole summit, right? And so how you show up, if you're confused about how to show up and what would be comfortable for you, then that's the work that I'm hoping that you'll want to do with me and Vocal Alchemy. But I'm willing to answer any questions that come up today. I'm going to give y'all a little space and time to think if there's anything that you want me to help you apply it to specifically. Is there anything that you want me to help you find in the chart, like the things that Sonia brought up? This would be a great time for that too. And then while you get your questions together, I'm going to go ahead and tell you about the Vocal Alchemy program. So if I can find the right page. There we go. So my programs are all centered on using our voices to heal and transform ourselves and others. Vocal Alchemy is about bringing that into our spaces and into our businesses, and being able to create spaces that don't drain you. And that's why I call it sustainable, because when we are being drained, eventually we burn out. Eventually we feel like we're doing the wrong thing and we want to do something else. Right? That's the goal of the program, is that what we create is something that we can continue to build on, even if that means innovating, like innovating into another iteration, like we were talking about with Rachel, right? So what the tools that we'll be using in Vocal Alchemy aren't actually Western astrology. They're going to be gene keys, which is a version of astrology, but it's going to give us our shadow, gift, and city, which we talked a little bit about during Astrology Day. And what that does, I find, is it gives you an even greater sense of alignment, because you can recognize when you're acting in the energy of your shadow. You can recognize when you're acting in the energy of your gift, and you can recognize even that acidic feeling, even though sometimes people aren't sure that they can reach it, because a lot of those ideas are grand, but you can. We might not be able to stay there forever and ever, but they can get longer and longer the more we are aligned in our signature energy. And the Get Vocal method, which I mentioned today, with using your voice to anchor intention and to allow vibration to resonate and amplify. And this is really about how we want to be impactful, right? And so this is about who we want to be. Who are we being? How are we being, right? And that's what the important part is. Like I said, if you're looking at, if I'm doing it right, then we're looking at external. So we're waiting for the external to confirm we did it right. Right. So this is about being in the vibration and enjoying the process. And so the different sections are the same sections that it takes to embody your brand. It's minding your gold of your voice. So we're going to find in your profile your signature energy of your brand. And then we're going to use the Get Vocal work to tap into it, so that we can recognize how, when we're grounded in that purpose, right? And then we're going to make space for our desires. Some of us are talking about how we don't even know how we feel anymore, right? Like when I started on this journey, gosh, it's a long time now, but like when I started on this journey, I didn't know what my feelings felt like, because I had been stuffing them so long. So guess what? If I was stuffing my feelings of my emotion, I was far from feeling into the resonance and the fine tuning of my energy, right? That wasn't happening at that time. And so how are we knowing our desires and then choosing to make space for them, that decision piece? And we'll find out the energy signature of your breakthrough, what it looks like when you are allowing your desires to be valuable, and what it looks like to hold space with the healing and transformative space with the earth. The groundedness of your energy is the goal of that one. Then we are going to be staking your claim. So we're going to understand your signature of your purpose. That purpose energy is actually going to be what motivates you as well. Like why the thing that makes you know that there's still work to do. And that looks different for each of us. So anytime you see energy signature, that means that's unique to you. That energy is unique to you in your chart. And the Gene Keys profile, there's 64 possibilities with 6 iterations of those possibilities. So it's like 384 or something around of possibilities in total for each of these signature energies. Yeah, so the staking your claim also requires you to know where you are in the process. So that means that staking your claim is to be able to present yourself in the cycle. So that's also what we'll be talking about. What does the cycle of creation look like, and how to know what part of the cycle you're in. Choosing your next steps with confidence. So this is about, again, knowing how you want to work into the world. What is your energy of service? How do you want to share that vision? And that is an energetic signature in a Gene Key profile. And then that how is going to keep you in a sustainable business practice so that you're not stuck, right? You're not feeling overwhelmed and all that kind of thing. And the playing your game is about knowing how you hold space, right? So that is, again, very unique to each one of us. That's why it's called playing your game. So how you hold space in a way that's comfortable and actually will energize you instead of draining you. That's something that is also part of your energetic signature. So, and then that will tell you also how success looks for you. You probably already know that, but again, we've been kind of poo-pooing it or saying that's not a real thing because other people have told us better ways to value things, right? In their opinion. And so you just, any energy work, anytime you're looking at your chart, you're basically just reminding yourself of what you already know. Again, this is based on your own life and your own stories and who you actually are, not something outside of that, right? And then taking the stage, this is about turning on, right? It's like, okay, now I'm going to choose to show up, and we're going to have an idea of how we want that to be done is going to feel a certain way. And the energy signature tells you what that's going to feel like. And the interesting about your prosperity energy signature is that you can't get there. In other words, it's not like I can tell you, walk in this direction, your energy signature for prosperity is over there. Right? It's not a linear thing. It's something that happens in the vibrational field when we have allowed ourselves to live in our alignment and are choosing to turn that on. So amplifying it, right? And then everything, all of the energies that make up you become that possibility, right? And so you can recognize it because if you're in the way of prosperity, then that's how things will feel. For me, like mine is one of the baselines for mine is simplicity. So the more simple I can keep things, the more likely that I can have a prosperous outcome. And that does include money, but I also think of prosperity as what allows me to feel vibrant in my life, right? So that sense of joy and the ability that the people that are connected to me can feel the same. So that's how I think of prosperity, that I'm not just prospering, but the people that I'm connected to are prospering, right? So if I'm making money, that the people that are connected to me are making money. And that's how I see that. And then, yeah, showing up and showing out is that full, this is me, I'm out in the world. I am turned on and out here, right? And again, for some of us that require a little bit of gentleness and grace moving out into the world, that we know what it takes, like what we need to support ourselves in that moving out and showing up again. So we're not burning out when we move out, and that we are in overflow. That's how I think of it. We're not, again, exhausting our energy, but we're in that energy that's amplified. That is what is being given out to others when we show up. So yay. But if you're joining now today, then you get access to the Vocal Creatrix course, which is the step before Vocal Alchemy. So you're going to learn how to start applying this to your purpose energy at first. And that's going to be mostly about that purpose energy and starting to recognize when you're in alignment with that and when you're not, and how to kind of ask questions around that to continue to build and clarify that alignment energy so that we're getting into that resonance area and how that feels. So we have that conversation. What does it feel like in my body when I'm in alignment, right? And then you're going to have access to the VIP All Access Pass. So that's for this year and last year. And the other thing that I forgot to mention earlier in the week, but you also get 3 months of the Creatrix membership. So the Creatrix membership is essentially a group that we start of people that want to continue the practice so that they aren't forgetting what their tools are, essentially. So that's just that possibility to keep that up. I think I have a question. I'm excited. I love it. I love questions. I'm just going to put the link in the chat if anybody's ready to sign up. And then get to my question. Let's see. Have you ever felt fear of doing something different because a negative spiral has made you find parallels to the new and past situation? If so, how did you get out of that and bring awareness to ensure showing up in a different way? So fear is that. Remember Raiza was talking about on Monday? So fear is that warning. It's the energy to get something different done. So, that worry that you're going to continue the negative spiral, right? That fear of continuing that negative spiral is actually trying to help you. It's trying to give you the energy to move past that situation, right? So it's the answers, right? So in other words, you want to, however that fear is coming in, does it feel mostly mental? Does it feel mostly in your body? Again, it's something that we practice when we work together. Is it like the core of you? Does it feel like the earth is shaking, that kind of fear? Like, or you just feel like, I have no stability. Where is it? And then can you be with that? So that's the step that we have actually already practiced. The first step of Get Vocal is to breathe out. So if you want to breathe out with me, and then S's so that you can really feel the muscles helping us, breathing into the earth, recognizing the earth, breathing from the earth when you breathe in. Below the belly button so we can feel how the energy wants to move. And just, if you can tell, where is it? And if it's possible, can you tell what it's trying to tell you yet? That's the place where I would start. That's the awareness. That's how you bring awareness to it. You bring awareness by being with it. So that's what Rosha was talking about, where they had to do a lot of work of sitting with their shadows and the discomfort of those shadows. That's the discomfort. It's whatever feeling that negative feeling is. And negative spirals are the worst, right? Because we know there's a pattern, and yet every time we think that we're breaking out of that pattern, we get another indicator that we're not. And so we get even more frustrated. And so it actually becomes very tender, and and what happens in a negative spiral is that we really aren't sitting with it. We're sitting close to it. We're sitting, we're in the city, but we haven't actually decided to come up right with it, right beside it. And just be like, okay, I'm afraid because. right? Because the other thing I think that stops us sometimes is that the light worker idea that you're never supposed to think something bad. I don't want to have a negative thought spiral. Well, that's the difference that Maria was talking about. It was sitting, not Maria, who was that? I forget. One of the speakers was talking about of not, oh, that was Raisa, of not sitting right in it, but with it. So if you're in it, then the negative spiral and you feel like you're dying. How y'all feel? But that's how it feels for me. Like if I'm in a negative spiral of thought, then and I'm in it, then I just feel like I'm gonna suffocating. Like it's just like continuing to compress me. And then if I'm with it, then what's happening in your energy body around that is that essentially that we're actually in our higher self perspective, that we're just recognizing that we're having a human experience, we're having emotion, right? And that we're recognizing, oh, that emotion that I didn't, and we can see where that emotion is coming from. And that's what gives you the insight. That. Yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah, and if you have any direct questions or if you want to work through that with me, that's cool too. Yeah. So I heard a quote once: upon a time, we are all pieces of God walking the earth in lesson. I agree. I don't know who said it, but I agree with that person. Yeah, because that's what we're here for, is we're having the perspective of our process in this body. But we're still connected to everything, and everything is God. Lee Carroll channeling. Oh, Lee Carroll channeling Cryon. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I've heard of her, but I have not heard from her yet. I haven't seen her.
Him. Lee Carroll is him.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, who knows? I wouldn't have known either.
Lee Carroll. That's so funny because I listened to a channeler too called Lee Harris, and he's a he, but I didn't even cross my mind that it was a he. That's hilarious. Yes, yes. What I'll be doing is I'll be pulling the winner of Vocal Alchemy today, and I'll post it to the group. And so you'll all know who the winner is. And I'm excited. I think it's going to be cool. I'll see if I do it online. Maybe I'll do it right after this online. But in the meantime, if you want to go ahead and snap up your pass, then we have the link in the group. Is there anybody that wants to ask me a question about that? About getting um, registered for the Vocal Alchemy course?
It all seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, is it making
Yes.
sense? Because sometimes I talk in circles and then people, and I'm like, I think I'm making sense to me. Um, but yeah, and then if you have any questions, like if you want to know about making it in separate payments or anything like that, it's okay to contact me. This is something I make all my clients do, right? Is if you know this is for you, this is resonant for you, and it just looks like right now that it's not possible financially, right? Contact me. Number one, I'll know it's something that's coming up for you, and then I can support you energetically. I can say, I see Thought having the resources to do whatever they're called to, right? That's how I think about it. Yeah. And if we need to make a plan, right, then we can plan out payments, that kind of thing. But I need to know first, and I do require my clients to speak up for what they need. Deb has a hand. Well, she didn't do the reactions, but I will go ahead.
Thank you. This has been like so fabulous because all week when you spoke about the synchronicities, sorry, this is kind of relating to what you just said about the plan and the payment and so wonderful. Thank you. But all week there's been these synchronicities, like these excuse me,
No problem.
um magical numbers, like my spirit numbers, these angel numbers, whatever you want to call them, and I've been seeing them for a few years now.
Wow.
Certain ones repeating over and over, but certain times during your talk, like right now, here it's 1:11 in my time zone. So like these numbers come up, but there you said something one day during the talks that connecting to our higher source energy and things like that. And I looked on my notes. I was at page 111 on my notes.
Wow.
Things like this. It's so cool. And then last night I was absorbing like the huge day yesterday, and oh my God, processing that for a while, I think. Shall
Yeah.
I be? I shall be. But last night, a new angel number or a new number was revealed to me, like in a different way, um, in a new mix of some similar numbers. And, um, you know, but it's about moving forward. My voice is horsing up right now.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful. And I do want to work on this. Like when my voice does this, what do I do?
Yeah. So a lot of times my sensitives, like the voice gets blocked when we are either we're overqualifying what we want to say. There's something you want to say, but you're trying to make it okay to say, or we might be getting a little bit of feedback in the room, so to speak. So this happens to a lot of my sensitives when they are going live, let's say on Facebook or this kind of thing. And I've noticed, especially for channelers, that they have this thing and start like they can't get it out, right? And almost always, like especially if they're channeling for the audience, like that's usually the audience. The audience is like trying to keep something from being realized, essentially, either in their own head or in their understanding of what's going on, and so they will actually it'll feel like being silenced, you know. And so essentially when that happens is we have to tune back in, right? So again, the stronger our connection to our own self, essentially, our own energy is, the less we are going to be influenced by external energy. And the clearer we'll be on what wants to be said from us, right? So just take your time. So I think that's going to be a rule for Deb. If y'all saw me last year, the year before, 5 years ago, I was the slowest speaker on the planet, right? And it was because I had to take my time to tune in to what wanted to be said. Like other people, I wasn't like other people, and I couldn't just go, right? I had to wait till I knew what to say. And so now it looks a lot different just because I've cleared a lot of that stuff and I'm no longer comparing myself constantly and all that kind of stuff. I'm not looking for what's okay. I'm only looking at what wants to come through me, right? So take your
Oh,
time.
yeah. What great advice. Because you know, when I worked with kids, and I was a school bus driver for a little while, quite a while, but when I had to talk to children, I'd find I would deliberately slow down and use a lower tone.
Mm.
And at the time I embodied Beverly Crusher from Star Trek. For the next generation, I could kind of channel her voice and cadence or rhythm. I once upon a time, but now I got to be me. I can't be her. I can't do that. That's not, that's not who that is. But it did help to have an example of, oh, this is the voice I want to use when I want to communicate in that way. And or we, like when you talk to a baby or an animal, it's different again. So it's all fun, but I'm looking really forward to developing this quality, an aspect to myself, like even energetically. um oh, yep, that conscious awareness is coming in again. So I need
Yeah,
to
I feel it.
ground a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so perceptive. And I find you are, Deb. You're just always so perceptive. That is so true. One of the reasons I know that the sound that you want is coming, it will come through and can come through. I don't care if somebody told you you're tone deaf or whatever. The sound that you want can come through. But it's because, again, our voices are an aspect of being human. The same way you wouldn't yell in a baby's face, right? I don't care how much you feel like you don't have control of your voice. Like you wouldn't be like, hey, baby, hey, right? There's nothing in your body that would allow for that, right? It's that same feeling that changes the quality of your voice when you are trying to communicate in a specific way. That same feeling is how you know and tune into the voice and words and the energy that wants to be transmuted through you when you're communicating, right? And what we often do, and it's the same thing singers do all the time, is they'll use somebody else's voice and they actually kind of eventually, they'll, yeah, hopefully, unless they're really committed to just not using their voice, eventually they learn how to sing themselves by imitating different people. It's and actually just a way of trying on different things that your voice can do, right? And so it can look that way if we look at mentors or just people that seem to have that energy that we want to share, then it's a way of just saying, oh yeah, I love these qualities. And then now that we're committed to using our own voice, right, that we say, well, I resonate with these qualities, right? You like them because you resonate with them. So writing down those qualities and saying, okay, how do I feel when I have those qualities? So again, this is some of the work that we do in vocal creatrix, right? So, and then when we're doing our get vocal work, that we're feeling into the earth and that we're calling in that vibration, right? And so when we do that, we'll recognize that the next time we speak from that vibration, that it has that quality, right? So it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. So Pat's saying there's a question in the group, so I want to make sure I answer that. So the cost of the summit this week is $77, Susan. So if you wanted the summit by itself, it's $77 this week. The price goes up to $97 for next week, and that's for the VIP pass that will give you this year's summit and last year's summit. So I think you liked last year's as well, Susan. So that might be a good deal for you. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Maria. She says she highly recommends me. She just did a testimonial for me, so I have a testimonial from Maria soon. Pat says I'm awesome at negative spirals. I think we all are. I think one of the tricks of being an empath is that when we are in an energy, we are in it. We're like deep in that energy. Like we are not just like playing with that energy. We're just like having the whole experience of that energy. So I find that empaths are like that's why it seems like we're too emotional. It's because we are having a full experience. Go ahead, Deb. I think, did you unmute?
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, it goes in with everything you're saying about previously you said feeling into the earth and grounding. And so that's why this week and the speakers this week are so valuable, because it takes us into the deepest places where we come from, the earth and Gaia and the spirit and all that energy. And somehow that we can use that or learn to use that or embody it, as you say, and then become it. And that's our signature. That's who we are.
Yeah.
Discovering that is going to be such a beautiful as we keep doing that.
It's so true. Like, it's one of the certificates I have is from Energy Codes that they've actually done, there's a combination of things that have been seen in visioning and things that have been actually practiced in science. And like they have charts of from science. And one of those things is that our energy actually comes through us through our field and then it goes into the earth, right? And then it bounces back. So that's actually the work we're doing. We're actually aligning to our highest energy. And when it hits the earth, it actually is being stepped down for our current experience. So in other words, how we can act from there. And that's why it's part of knowing and orienting to what is next for us. That's why I say, if you're not sure you want to continue to buy the summit or buy the course, then breathe. Start with breathing, right? And as much as possible, do it the way that we've spoken about this week, where you're breathing all the way out and you're breathing into the earth. Just visualize that. And then you're breathing back into your belly. And again, below the belly button is going to help us to really feel the energy that we breathe in, where it wants to shift, how it wants to move, right? Then of course you can let it shift and move from there. So a lot of times I'll just let my body move in different ways so that I can see what it wants to do. But when you do it enough times, you'll literally feel things in your body. You'll feel warmth moving, or you feel like a little shiver, or you'll feel, a lot of us will feel tingles. Yeah, what's the word? Tingles in your hands and feet, right? And the more we're connected to our energy, the more you'll feel, and then you'll start to recognize certain paths. That's why I was pointing out, like, where is that feeling of fear in that question? So when you're asking that question, what is that feeling? Now, where do you feel it? Some people have actual locations in the body. Usually if I'm feeling fear, like my whole body is just on alert, right? And so I focus, and then I focus in below my belly button and your solar plexus. So you're getting some fear in the solar plexus. So one of the practices that we learn in vocal alchemy is that how to breathe that through too, because that we can actually, once we can feel it, you can actually breathe it through and then let it disperse. And then you can actually speak the healing of that. So through voicing, if you don't have words, you just make a sound, whatever sound comes to you. And what happens is that that transmutation becomes how people think of manifestation, magic, that kind of thing. It's what's happening when you transmute at that level. That's why the fear itself isn't the bad part, right? The shadow isn't negative. We think of it as negative, but it isn't. We're talking about this on astrology. So it's the seed of what wants to happen, right? So it's just unformed. It's not that it's like bad, and it's not, we think hard feelings like fear and sadness are somehow against us, right? That they are going to take us down, right? Because especially when they're in the egoic field, which is what we were just talking about, if they're in that egoic chakra area, then it feels like dying. It really does. It feels like, because that's that shadow of ego death, right? It's who we think we are as humans. We think we can die, essentially. And so that feeling feels like dying, but you're not going to actually die. That's what Jen Yang was saying. You're not going to, even though you're having a fear feeling, doesn't mean you're going to actually die. It's just, again, driving the energy that you'll need to make a new start, to shift something, right? And so when we can breathe that in and speak to it, then we're actually transmuting that energy to the initiation instead of just fear. So that's the beauty of it. So Pat's saying, when does the early bird price end, Monifa? Yes, so the early bird price for the summit ends on Sunday. So Monday, it'll be the $97 price. Yeah. So yeah, so that's the thing.
Oh, is that tomorrow? Sunday, tomorrow?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, time blindness is real. Yeah, so yeah, if I didn't have my calendar to tell me and my assistant to tell me that like today was the day that we're supposed to announce the winner, things wouldn't happen. Go ahead, Pat.
Amazing. I've been working. Hi everybody. I've been working, so I missed 3 days of it. And I've been just listening, and it's the quality of the speakers is amazing. What's her name? Myra?
Myra.
Oh my God. Oh my goodness. And I'm like, yeah, all of
Yeah.
it. Like she was speaking to me, she's speaking just straight to me.
Yeah.
I don't know you guys, but she was speaking right to me.
I mean, I promise
it's
you.
like yes. I go like, yes, this is what I'm
Constantly.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I posted, I think, but it's when I was posting the interview from Myra, I was like, this is for Pat.
It's like, this is what I'm saying. This is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. This is normal. What we do is not normal.
Yeah.
What we do is not normal. That we do not buy in a pharmacy, whatever. So I'm like, this is the normal. This is why we feel this way. And yes, the whole content of the whole thing. And I really appreciate that you put it and that you put it up on Facebook. And I was laughing because I was working, right? And I'm listening to this when I'm not supposed to. So hopefully my employer would not listen to this. I don't think my employer is listening to the community. Okay, so I'm listening in between, and you had issues, technical issues, right?
Yeah.
So you uploaded it. So I was catching up in YouTube.
Yeah.
Which was clear for me. So it's like, I'm listening to YouTube. So you had all these things, but you never know how you're going to affect what you're doing. It's amazing. Aww. And I'm also, it's amazing. Yes, thank you. And I think the value is, wow. There's no words. The value is huge.
Oh, thank you, Pat. Yeah. I knew Myra was going to speak straight to the heart of Pat, because it's all about health and the wealth of our plants and growing and gardening, and the power, right, that's in just being with them and having your energy put into your food, and then having that for yourself in your meals and what you're feeding your family. It's magical, I think, what Pat does.
Thank you. And it speaks to all of us. Something else I love is the connection with science and spirituality that we've been seeing throughout the summit. It's interlinking right there. It's going. That's why we are Trekkies. When she said Beverly Crusher, I go, yes, I know. So Is that science and spirit is just one coin? What is it? Two sides of the same coin?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That did come up with Myra's conversation too. Like, that it is two sides of the same coin. It really is. And the fact that we've been trying to separate is what causes the confusion.
It's the empower, because it empower us. So I have the power now. I don't have to go through somebody else. So you know that. All right. I'll stop
That
talking.
part, it's the truth. You're right. You're so right. Yeah. You'll like the second one too. So make sure you get the resource page. We did an interview with Myra with one of my clients, Jem, and her podcast, She Became We. And it's a continuation of that conversation. And I think he'll like that one too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yay. So, yes. I love this. I want to see if I'm missing anything. Yeah, it feels like the princess and the pea. I don't know that story well enough to know the correlation, Susan. Are you talking about the pea under the mattress? I don't know. But yeah, and then I don't know what you were saying that in reference to. But yeah, I can draw a correlation because that's what I do. I connect the dots. That's what I do. That's what my brain likes to do, which is why sometimes, I don't know if y'all were here for Rodin's interview where she's, oh, I just saw all the possibilities of where this conversation could go. And that's my brain all the time. So if I just stop talking, I'm trying to decide which of those threads to walk. So yeah, it's one of those things. It is good. I always say that there's hard parts of being an empath, and then there's the good parts. And one of the things we did in Vocal Creations, we did the fourth step of Get Vocal, which is to recognize the energy of something that we're focused on, and then how it changes when you focus on something different, right? And the thing that reveals is that you pick up energy from everything. Right? And if you're sensitive and empathic, and we haven't learned like what the vibration is of things, that's confusing. That's overwhelming. Right? And so what happens is that we're just overwhelmed by life because we're always getting energetic signatures that we don't know how to frame. Right? And so, yeah, so that can be really disorienting. So what we want to do is be able to use our tools. If you already have tools, that's great. To be able to start to recognize what is the energetic feedback that's happening, if we care. I think it's more important to recognize your own energy so that you can tell when another energy is interfering with that. Right? I think that's a much better way to go about it. It simplifies things, in my opinion. And then you can notice if there's something that's interfering. And then you can just, okay, what is that energy? Now I'll focus on that, right? Like, what is that energy? How do I want to go about dealing with that energy? Right. So beautiful. That's pretty much what I've got for y'all. Are y'all feeling complete today? Okay, so she said, I had the right story, and then she felt the pea beneath them all. And I think she's talking about our sensitivity, right? Princess and the Pea, and it's being sensitive. And it's true. We tend to pick up the most minute energies. And then depending again on how grounded we are, we can make it into a big thing, or we get preoccupied. So sometimes we'll get preoccupied because you're like, oh, there's that one thing. I don't know what it is. It's foreign to me. Oh, I don't know. Unless it just makes you uncomfortable. because that happens to me all the time. That's why I'm familiar with that feeling. And poor Daryl, gosh, the first decade of our marriage. I don't know how he dealt with me, honestly. I really don't. Because I was sensitive to everything and I had no idea that I was sensitive to everything. And so it just looked like being really picky. I can't touch that. It's dirty. I can't really like tiptoeing around junk and oh, I can't talk to them. I don't know them. Like just weird reactions to everything. Oh my goodness. So nice. It said, feeling amazing. Thank you so much, Manifa. You are doing beautiful work. Amazing job on the summit. Thank you, Naya. I appreciate that. Okay. So I think I'll wrap it up, y'all. I am still in the group. I'll be in the group throughout the week. Have a fabulous rest of your day, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Deb.